And we're back. Toilet break over. Intermission ended.
Right. So I swear it's not the next day. It is really just a few minutes from now. GreyJedi 91 spilled something on his shirt and had to change it. But yeah, we are back to continue our talk on how to train how to train your dragon too.
I
I
wish
don't
there
have
were
a
our
dragon.
dragons. I
I
wish
don't
there
have
were
a
our
dragon. I
dragons.
swear. I swear I don't have one. But yeah, so this is really kind of the what gave us the idea to basically make a video out of this because like we mentioned at the beginning of this, people have just been wondering about like, hey, we want to see some of your lengthy chats or whatever that happen. Well, this kind of is just how we talk. I mean, it's turned into more or less a full length analysis episode as it happens, but we just like to go in depth with this kind of stuff. We can't
Yeah.
help ourselves. We talk about this stuff.
With the exception of long
Um,
pauses in how we speak and think, okay, what am I going to say next?
yeah,
How am I going to word this? We've basically just this is it. This is what you
yeah.
get with us. We are boring people.
Yeah, aside from the dead air that happens in like a real conversation, this is it, guys. This is it. We swear. Anyway, so yeah, the second one, this is kind of like what gave us the idea to make this discussion because when I first mentioned that I really liked the first one, Callan, he wrote back to me saying that he really enjoyed the second one, and as far as he was concerned, was way better than the first one. Like made it sound like it blew it out of the water. I understand your perspective on that has now changed a bit.
Yes, yeah. Since rewatching it, obviously, because it was years since I'd last seen it when I said that, especially the first one, I've rewatched them both in preparation for our discussion here, and I was like, okay, yeah, the things I could remember not liking about the second one are probably more impactful than maybe I thought they were, and I was like, and the first one is so good, if basic. So
Hmm.
I'm now at the point where I love them both equally. I think
Yeah.
the second one reached further and in terms of individual moments accomplished more, and I prefer those. But as an overall whole, it is immensely more flawed. So I kind of bring up this first
I
one as
can
well
agree
to
with
the
that.
point where I joint love them.
I can agree with that. It like based on that alone, I would say that I've had the similar relationship with other sequels before. Things like Korra, like
Mm.
in the way it relates to Avatar, the Last Airbender. You could say the same thing. Like the Korra reached further, did a lot of things better, was in many ways more interesting, but as a whole, it was lesser.
Mm.
I could say that about many such things. But yeah, in this particular case, I think I entirely agree with that assessment. I think that I definitely do prefer the first one over the second one, though, because and here's where I make like the delineation there. The first one, I don't say this very often. I'm gonna go ahead and call that more or less a flawless movie. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing about that bothered me, like literally nothing, to the point that I think it needed a rewrite or this had no business being here. This was terrible. This didn't make
Yeah,
sense. There was like nothing about that or in that vein with the first movie for me,
there are
which is
certainly
somewhat rare.
improvements I could make to it, I think, and a lot of people could, but I don't think there's nothing in there that inherently stands out as, oh, this is terrible. This could just be
Hmm.
amped up a bit, or this could be tweaked slightly a bit. There's nothing criminal in it, which I definitely agree with. Whereas in the second one there are things where, okay, take that out,
Yes.
pull that, change
Yeah.
that. There's lots of it in that. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I can definitely agree with that. I flawless isn't really the right word, but I know what you're going for.
I don't know another word for it. Like I don't
Yeah.
want to use the word flawless or perfect, but it really does just strike every chord. I'm going to put it this way: absolutely nothing about it bothers me.
Yes.
Because that's
Yeah.
true. Like
Yeah.
that's the way that that's the most honest way I can say it. It just there's nothing about it that bothers me, which again, somewhat rare. Like even in things I love, even
Mm.
Star Wars, like whatever, well, Star Wars as it was, even, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Star Wars now, I mean, you don't have to go searching for flaws at all. Um, but yeah, so I'm not like so anchoring this back in the discussion of the actual film itself. We have every character returns, yeah,
Hmm.
right? Like
Yep.
there's because nobody died in the first one.
Nobody died.
Um, with the exception of like the main villain dragon, like if that counts, but not that's not what we're talking about. Um, and we have a few new characters to discuss. Do we want to talk about? Is there anything in particular we want to talk about before, or do we just dive right into?
Yeah, I guess we just dive right because most of the characters that are new here don't really come up until later in the film.
Hmm.
So I suppose we just talk about it in sequence, as this has kind of turned into an accidental Fanalysis. We can go through it roughly
Well,
and any
before we
things you
get
want
into
to
the
talk
characters,
about.
I guess the brief setup because this movie doesn't really. Neither movie is very heavy on the plot.
Mm.
And in the second movie, I think that we actually go through like similar beats that the first one hit. It's sort of like I don't want to call it copy paste because it's not. But there's like similar elements to both stories.
It's expanded on. They take the same formula and they kind of make it a bit more nuanced.
Yeah.
And they use the same cookie cutter and they just kind of tweak it a bit. So I definitely see where you're coming from. This pacing, if nothing else, you know, that each sequence is kind of paced similarly.
Yeah. And I don't, you know, it's like one of the interesting things, again, you know, very strong opening sequence, but in this case, it's not actually like a fight for their lives. It's become like a race, you know, like, which I thought was really fun. Was it a race, or it was more like a game? Like
they call it dragon racing, but it is basically just a game of Quidditch style thing.
But it was a lot of fun, and it's I didn't realize it, but there's actually like or I didn't expect it rather, but it was a time jump, you know, which
5 years.
Yeah, it's a sizable one. You know, these are now young adults, like as opposed to teenage, you know, folk.
Yeah, and while we can't really comment on it because we're not familiar with the material overly outside of individual beats, the series themselves do fill this gap quite nicely. They actually bridge the distance and cover things like I think the Hiccup sword, for example, in this film is that comes up and is actually
see, I was
involved.
wondering. I was like, where the hell did he get that lightsaber from?
Yeah,
like, I was
and
like,
the stuff in the films, you know, it's not necessary. It's not this stuff you don't need to know it for the films to make sense. You can easily just say, oh, Hiccup made this, that's fine. But
that's totally what I did. So it's not a flaw, but a part of me was like, oh, okay. I didn't even realize that it had like an explanation. And
most of the stuff.
I forget that there are cartoons of that because I've never seen all that.
Yeah,
you know?
Even the development of the relationship between Astrid and Hiccup and stuff, that's heavily explored in the series. So I like that. While I'm not familiar with it, I like that they've taken the time to kind of build up their own mini expanded universe there and have it kind of feed in and play out as naturally as possible.
That is cool.
Yeah,
it's cool because I can see the potential for all those stories with, like, you know, his village, you know, and all that, and all those different sorts of dragons and characters and followers and all that. But at the same time, it doesn't come at the expense of, you know, it's not reliant on that. If you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, none of these questions you can't answer
work.
in your head immediately with your own kind of filter. And it's like, okay, so where are they here? What's? Oh, okay, never mind. It's fine. Of course, this happened this way. You know, it's nothing that kind of raises questions like that. But it's nice to know that they do take the time to talk about it later on. You know, especially for those who want to dive deeper and see more. There is now that available to them, with reportedly reasonable quality. So you know, that's a rare thing to see in TV series built on the films.
I think all these DreamWorks pictures sort of have like a television adaptation or two.
Most of them,
penguins, penguins from Madagascar.
Some are better than others, of course, but yeah.
I'm pretty sure Kung Fu Panda.
Yeah, Kung Fu Panda has one. Yeah.
Yeah, these are all DreamWorks. Yeah, I think they are.
I think so. Yeah.
But yeah, in any case, so that's interesting to hear. But so the basic setup is that Stoic is wanting to pass sort of the reins on over to Hiccup and make him chief, but Hiccup doesn't want to do that. Is because he feels the call for adventure, or because he doesn't feel ready for responsibility?
Both? Bit of both. It's a case of him not having yet found himself, and he's looking, you know, typical protagonist fashion. He's looking for it out there when really it's in here, as Astrid tells him. I like, again, that this the first step. This is kind of the first real scene of the film after the flight. The amazing flight scene leading into it.
Wait, I do want to say, because I think I didn't make it clear. I love that scene. I just don't like that song.
Yeah.
But that scene is amazing. Oh, yeah. I love that scene.
Yeah, and I like it and the song, so that just helps it for me. But I can understand it's definitely one of those things, but it could, you know, oh, I don't like that. It could definitely tinge it for you. But yeah, so we get that sequence, which is amazing. We can't comment enough on how well these films do the flight. You know, it's just breathtaking. But this is the first kind of proper scene.
I didn't want my criticism of the song to be, you know, to overshadow the moment. Like, I do not judge that moment like negatively just because of that. It drew me out of it a little bit, because I was thinking I wouldn't listen to this ever. But I love this music, or I love this moment. So.
Yeah. If nothing else, the invention of the wings is just perfect. So, that absolutely should have been here. I can't think of any better moment to have this kind of brought in and shown. It was just really inventive, creative. It showed off how much he's grown maturity-wise, because he just jumped off a dragon willingly and gleefully. You know, you see the young man in him here. And then it feeds into this scene, where this first kind of real scene of the film, where the introduction of, again, as I said with the first film, this film does a very good job of blending narrative, character, and you know, plot really together, and just simple moments. Because this is just a scene where two people who are a couple are meeting up, looking out over what Hiccup's been doing and trying to find and looking forward, and it's blending the very physical search over the map with his own personal kind of journey he's trying to go on. And she's the one telling him he doesn't need to do that. So it's so well written.
I really like the presentation of this scene and how realistically they feel like a couple. Because there's not like a oh, I'm so in love with you, aren't we in love? Like they're just hanging out. Like that's all that they're doing. And it's like he's working on a map. At one point, I think she takes like the pen away from him and she starts doodling with it. Like there's just little things that they're doing. There's just, you could tell like they just they're very comfortable and familiar with one another and have been for quite some time at this point. It's just it feels very
organic,
nuanced. Yeah. And I also, and again, it's many movies, sequels, I should say, they just ape on the success of the first one and just like do the exact same thing. And in this, you know, there's a funny scene in the first one where he imitated his father, like, excuse me about me. And there's like, he starts doing it again.
It's very
but
funny
it's like,
scene.
but there's a reason, you know, like, and it's funny because she starts imitating him, you know, it's like, I don't do that. Like, what he's like, you're doing it now. You know, I mean, I really enjoyed that because it's not just the same joke. You know what I mean? It is the same sort of dynamic, but the fact that he's being made the butt of the joke as well, I enjoy that. You know, it's like they're not just resting on their laurels. There's still creativity going on, and that's the whole movie.
Oh yeah,
me, you know?
They're doing so much with the scenes. It's one of my favorite scenes of both films put together. Just this because it's so natural. It's like you very.
It is my favorite scene in this movie. It's my favorite scene in the sequel. Yeah.
Yeah, it's same with me. It's my favorite for this film. With possible joint exception of one further in, but we'll get to that. It's rare that you see couples written well in pretty much anything. But there's a very kind of systemic problem with creators in that they don't really. It's very odd to me. They don't know how to write people who are in a relationship. And I think one of the main problems is that they tend to. There's not really a formula you can work with that applies to everyone, because every combination of various different people have different dynamics to go with. So you can't sell it to a general market very easily. But this here is just gold for me because. The simple things when she kisses his cheek and she goes, because he's just been slobbered on by Toothless.
Yeah, because he's been slobbered on.
Yeah, it's like it's so real. You can see this playing out with real people, and that just bleeds off the screen for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that some people, most of the time romance doesn't work because it's too like on the nose, where like they're talking about love, like where that just doesn't. That doesn't happen. You know what I mean? It's like
because I'm so in love with you.
Right. and that's like, you. So, to be fair, that is one of the most terrible ever. It's like, it's not always that bad, but I mean, it's like, they're not talking about their relationship. They're just talking.
They just
and
in a relationship, and you can see it.
Most scenes are not about that. And that's the reason why you don't see it that often. I think most of the times when people, like couples are written well, it's in like a television series because you have time to not be talking about, because this is not like a love story and we don't need to be talking about how in love we are for the plot. Like this feels like, okay, this is what we're doing today, so, and that's fine, it's better for that fact. I mean,
it's and the fact that they're blending, that reality and what they're trying to get across with these two as characters, with the plot and the arc that he's about to go on, and just general humor.
Yeah.
There's everything's being wrapped up into one little neat tapestry here, and it's a perfect scene for me. Even the background, like, of Toothless and Stormfly, just being idiots in the background. It's brilliant.
And the thing is like this is my favorite scene because of how well executed it is. But I don't care about their relationship in the sense that I'm not a shipper. I like the relationship. I like this, but it's like I don't care. Like that's not the reason I like this scene. If you know what I mean. It's not like, oh, this is my favorite Astrid and Hiccup scene. It's like, okay, this scene is just perfectly done. I love this scene. You know what I mean? That's not the reason I'm involved with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's like a difference between, there's like some people that are just so into shipping that it's like that it's that scene showing them being together that's the reason they love it.
Yeah. Oh my god, these two characters are on screen and in the same frame. It's
It's like that's not why I like it. It's just very well done and well written, well executed, and all that. And also I think that this is I really love the first movie's animation, but I think that something about this scene is where I noticed, okay, that they've upped their game somehow. Like the close-ups on the characters' faces, the look in their eyes. There's just something about the expressiveness on the human characters this time around that looked better somehow. I don't know how to explain it. You know,
the texturing, if nothing else. I mean, look at the leathers and the way it kind of the sound treatment of how it moves and squeaks, and with this kind of way, the way he's tying up the flaps of his wings again to his legs. There's so much detail going on.
Yeah, there seems to be more detail to me. And maybe he even had these in the first movie. I don't remember, but he had like at one point I was noticing it looks like a bunch of pixels on like his head. But it was like he had like a tuft of hair that was like braided, and I was staring at that like, what is that? Like, is that a braid? And like, and she got closer to him, and like she twisted another one next to it, like just playing with him or whatever. Yeah. And I go, oh, it is a braid. Okay, like so it's like there's all these other details in it, that it comes out in like their eyes. I feel like there's more close-ups on the character's faces in this movie.
There's definitely more money been put into this one for sure.
Yeah.
They know they're working with something big at this point.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the whole shipping thing. I'm not a shipper in general, but when it's done well, I'm absolutely on board with this. And for these two together, the scene sold it for me. I was like, okay, these two are amazing. I love this as a relationship. Please give me more. And little details like that with the wrapping of the hair. It's like noted in the behind the scenes, supposedly, is that he doesn't like those, but he keeps them because Astrid did it. And that scene is what sells that kind of thing for me. It's like, okay, I'm behind it. And it considering this is supposed to be a romantic relationship between these two, and that's part of the story, the fact that they actually sell that as that is that, okay, major props. And they did it with starting his arc, they did it with starting the story's plot, and they did it with then immediately following up with the next scene, which leads us into the actual, the plot itself. It's a nearly, I can't think of any flaws for it. It's a perfect scene for me.
I agree. I thought that way as I was watching it. I was like, oh, this is perfect. But so they encounter dragon, what they call it, dragon trappers.
Yeah.
Right.
So perfect scene followed up by exposition. Wasn't a fan of this play out.
Now this character, what's his name? Eret?
Yeah. Played by Kit Harington.
Which I didn't.
I think it's Kit Harington.
Yes, yeah. Jon Snow, which I didn't. I recognized the voice, but not who it was. The whole movie, I was like, "Who is that?" I know this voice, but when I looked in the credits, oh, okay, it's Jon Snow. But something about him, like just I like. He's such a cartoony. He has like a cartoony face.
Yeah.
Like his expressions make me laugh. Like there's a moment that happens like later, but it's like when they come back and they give up, and he had like his sword out. And they're like, oh, no, wait, we give up. And he's just like,
yeah,
what? And I go, oh, okay, I guess this is going to be one of the main characters now. Like, it was like I at first, when he first showed up, I thought this guy's like going to be like a nothing character, or we're going to be done with him. But at that point, like just his face, I was like, oh, okay, he's going to be like, he's going to be like the redeemed guy. It's like, or he's going to sacrifice himself and die or something, And that's what I will say about this particular. Well, I mean, what is there to say about this scene? Like, this is where we encounter the plot, you were getting.
That's one of the reasons I dislike it. Like, it's not just a case of, oh, okay, this is kickstarting the plot. Of course, this is how it works. The way, because they've gone from such a stark contrast of this perfectly natural and just executed scene to this, where they may as well literally be going, oh, stop for a moment, I'm going to deliver the plot to you via oration and you're going to listen to it. It's okay. They're literally saying, oh, you're dragon trappers, and like, yes, I'm a dragon trapper and I work for the boss who is the evil guy who's done this, and this fort was destroyed by the people who you're about to meet from the other. It's like, oh my god, can we stop delivering these lines? You would not be talking like this. Even though Hiccup's being funny about it, it still seems to me like this is not natural dialogue.
They mentioned this guy whose name I have looked up, Drago
Bloodvist.
Bloodvist. Yep. I just want to say, as much as we were talking about like how Hiccup's way is better and all that stuff, Hiccup, like, why do you think you can talk to a man whose name is Drago Bloodvist? Like maybe not. Maybe there's not good in everyone. Like, you know what I mean? It just he seems a little like because of the fact that he knows nothing about the guy. He seems a little overly optimistic about this for me.
Yeah. The thing is that this is one of the problems with the messages of the film. Again, it's them reaching. It's them reaching for this message and this kind of thematic push, which in theory works and technically does in the film, but the payoff for me at the end isn't strong enough because. for this exact reason. You don't buy that Hiccup is stupid enough to believe this.
No,
he's not. Yeah. He's not this blindly optimistic. You know, he's a pragmatist, so he's at least going to be realistic from that level. You know, he's going to think, okay, if nothing else, I've got the risk reward here, village that I have to protect. Let's not focus on saving this one bad guy I've never met and probably is evil. It's just I really liked as much as this is an exposition dump. This scene coupled with Stoic's reaction to the guy's name, because you could tell that there's history there. I liked the build up to the character of Drago. You know, I really liked that. I like, when Jon Snow's character shows him Eric shows him the scar.
Yeah, shows him the scar. He promised to be a lot less understanding next time I thought, okay, this is like going to be like an intense villain. Can we move over to the point where like Stoic tells the story of that character? Or is there anything you wanted to discuss before that?
No, that's pretty much it. That very, very exposition dumpy character. They fly back.
In that scene, in the same vein, like they mention, Drago Bloodfist is forming an army of dragons, and just like everyone's jaw drops who knows the name, and it's like, oh, we gotta blah blah blah, we gotta get ready, for conflict, for war. And when he finally does tell the story, I liked the character's sort of posture, like that sort of weird way he was walking, and like the cloak. I go, well, this is going to be an interesting character. There's going to be like something weird going on here.
And the note of him, speaking softly, the way, just that alone, when he says, he spoke softly and just said it, I liked that. It was like, ooh, that's edgy in a good way.
Yeah. By the way, he totally doesn't in the rest of the movie.
Oh, yeah. No, it doesn't. Yeah, it's very strange. I mean, I guess he was just going for theatrical performance there, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's very well done with like the build up to the villain. But we'll talk about like the rest of that later. I mean, there's not a lot like each scene just kind of like it actually is sort of like okay, like let's just carry on the plot now. Because we don't have that. Let's build a relationship together like we had in the first movie, like that sort of time where like the two characters are getting to know each other, Hiccup and Toothless and all that. It's just like, okay, let's get on with the plot, right? And so his whole thing, like he leaves like while his father is trying to like secure everything,
secure a lockdown.
To basically go talk to this Drago Bloodfist guy, right? Yeah. I mean, so what happens there?
We get the establishment before he heads off. We get the establishment of the fact that the relationship between the two hasn't fully formed yet into what it needs to be. I mean, there's still the whole Hiccup talking and Stoic walking on and just vaguely listening.
Father and son, right?
Yeah. So I mean, there's that is worth noting at this point, because it's kind of set up for the rest of the film as well. It's moved on to less a case of not listening and not appreciating him, to more of I'm taking you for granted now. It's like, okay, yeah, sure, but I know how Hiccup and how he is, and I appreciate him, but he doesn't know right about this particular instance, which is true. He knows that Hiccup is wrong about on this one, but Hiccup hasn't yet faced that reality, and he's still, for some reason, weirdly optimistic on this one, and does take the kind of leap and go off on his own. Well, Astrid follows him, but he doesn't know that at the time. And then that's worth noting, that there is that kind of setup for those two moving forward, because that's going to kind of be the core of their relationship throughout the individual plot sequences of the film.
Right. Now I kind of lose the thread of this, because they give up on Eric's ship, right, and they put themselves in prison. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. They kind of get to the point where they're almost convincing him, or Hiccup specifically is almost convincing him, and he's like, okay, and then they get interrupted by the friends.
Oh, that's right,
Stoic
because they come to rescue. I was trying to think, like, how did their paths go separate? I couldn't remember how that happened, right?
Yeah. So they pick up there, and
so his friends come to rescue them, right? And Hiccup is he meets.
Basically, this ends. He escapes.
Right?
He escapes this scenario, having been interrupted in there. He basically was getting to the point where he's going to convince Eric. So this is more reinforcement for his character, and how, okay, my way's right. I was going to do it. It was only because I was interrupted that it all got messed up. He flies off. Stoic and Gobber go after him. Stoic orders Astrid to take the others back to Berk, effectively. So they're now back on this ice block while they wait for people to come back to them. And Eric goes on in his broken ship, and then this is where Hiccup encounters Izzy on the clouds, and he's like, "Oh God, I'm so frustrated with how this is going." And then we get the introduction of
That's right.
the Dragon Rider.
Yeah. He was just like by himself and angry, right? Okay. But at some point, so he meets. I mean, do we even want to talk about like the build up to this? Could we just call her his mother?
Sure.
Okay, because I don't know what else to call her. Like,
yeah, the other Dragon Rider. The other Dragon Rider, which is a big surprise to him. He's like, there are other Dragon Riders? You know, so that's a big deal, I suppose.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really carry across anywhere in the film. It's just, okay, there are more, obviously. So yeah, she turns up. Very nice character design. The armor, the mask. I mean, it kind of goes nowhere, but it's still very cool for the initial introduction, like creeping up through the clouds.
I agree with that. It was a interesting. It was a very engaging scene where she showed up. Of course, we don't know who she is in that moment. But when she brings him back to the I don't even know what to call it.
Ice
the dragon
nest,
stronghold, the lair.
Nest.
Yeah.
Did you not like that scene? I was a big fan of the that moment when he's messing with the dragons and with the fire and the sword, and I found that very impactful.
I loved that scene.
Yeah,
I loved him, like what he was doing and sort of proving that he had a way with the creatures and an ability to relate to them and understand them and all that. I don't understand her in general. Like, she is my biggest problem with this entire movie.
Okay. See, I definitely had flaws with her, but I didn't dislike her as a whole. I thought I knew what they were kind of going with. It just didn't quite deliver the hammer blow for me.
I don't dislike her. It's just I feel like she was written strangely. I mean, he even just the way that the awkward way that she reveals who she is, and he's like, "Wait, I mean, you can't just say that." Like, I mean, and she doesn't. I feel like she never really moves on beyond that point. Her explanation for why she's been gone all this time, I thought was terrible. Yeah, I thought it was non-existent, rather. Just completely. Like, did you feel differently? Did you buy that story?
No, I didn't. See, this is the thing. I saw what they were going with for her, and for the most part, I think it lands. It's just the individual specific moments where it talks about, like you said, why she didn't go back, and how conflicted she was about that, and the resolution of how she gets over the guilt of doing that. They're there, but they're not really knit together properly. So you feel like, this moment she should feel way more guilty than she does. This moment Hiccup should be way angrier than he is. And this moment, why didn't you go back? And can we have some real reason for it? Yeah, you're right. It doesn't quite come together as a whole, but it's so close. This is probably the biggest example of me thinking they reached for something, and they didn't get it with this one.
What I got out of what her actual dialogue said, if I remember this correctly, was that she didn't feel like people could change.
Yeah.
Meaning mainly Stoic couldn't change. And but what did you want him to change into exactly? You know, it's like, for me, it's like I think I would have had Stoic be like sort of like well, in a way, maybe this is even what the villain was supposed to be, sort of. I would have had Stoic be revealed to have been kind of like, you know, she has like her exposition dump scene where like she says this is what happened, right? I would have had it so that he was like a Captain Ahab type, right? And she was trying to explain to him, like, that's not, like, you have to rein it in here, you know, or something like that. And like she was starting to notice that, like, on some level he was part of the problem. You know what I mean? And sort of bringing the dragon attacks down on himself, or so. And something about her way of doing things, she felt like she could do more good from away from the village to keep them safe. That I would have bought. Yeah. What we actually get.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. She says, "I thought, you know, you would be safer if I stayed away." No, that's not enough. It needs to be, "I was keeping you safer by staying away. Like, I was trying to wrangle as many of them away from the village as possible." Something like that. I would have
accepted that. Yeah, but what we actually get was like, what? I mean, like, it's like one of them was like touching your son in the cradle, and it was being sweet with him or whatever, and it was proof that of everything you've always believed,
which wasn't telegraphed in the first place anyway. Like, she was, we see her saying, "No, don't hurt the creature," and then she runs off, and that's all we got from her. So the idea is that she was another Hiccup, basically, but without the personal relationship to a dragon that makes him see this, you know. So it was clumsily introduced as an idea for her, definitely. And the fact that she's a neglectful mother is almost glossed over. I mean, it's not quite. It is addressed, and it's there in different moments and scenes. And I love the bits that we do get for that. And you do see a lot of guilt with that. It's just because the intro and ending of her little kind of arc is, as you said, so mercurial. It's like, it doesn't quite fit. It was the biggest disappointment of the film, if you ask me, in terms of what they reached for overall.
Yeah, she just. Well, I mean, I'll be honest. Her entire character is a bit of a retcon for me, because it sort of takes away from the impact of Hiccup being the first dragon rider. You know what I mean? And it's fine. You in my head, I'm going, okay, you can do that, but I have to like the character that you do this with. And I just didn't find her all that engaging. And like I said, I found a number of components of her character nonsensical or just inorganic. Like, and especially in comparison to just the majesty of everything else in these movies, that really kind of was like, oh, this feels like out of place. You know, like that's just how I felt watching it.
Yeah.
And that's sort of to the movie's credit. I thought it was so standout weird that I assumed maybe I missed a scene where she better explained it. So I went looking for one, and she just didn't. So it is like a flaw for me in this movie.
Yeah, it's almost like there's a scene they cut out that was, originally supposed to be in there that they just didn't put in for whatever reason, because it does feel like she says, "Oh, I thought you'd be safer with me gone." It's like, no, you just didn't want to go back to this life where you were, not getting your mission accomplished, basically. So you wanted to be here, and you're fascinated with the dragons, and you just kind of gave up on your family, which is her crime, and she acknowledges that, and there's guilt for that. And if you get to that point in her character, and you can look past everything else, she's very well executed from that moment on. It's just, if the fact that isn't a part of her, part of the complete tapestry with her, it's just this big black spot. You just don't, it needs more work. You need to rewrite this part of the story to make the overall whole work for me. So I'm definitely right there with you for that. But for the actual sequences themselves, the cave with the atmosphere of the shaking the stick to bring the fire up, and saying, okay, well, he's passed the test of not being an arsehole to the dragons. Bring his dragon in. Let's see what that relationship is, and then moving on to him, being friendly with him. That kind of gets her to engage. The idea of the feral woman who has been away from just language, if nothing else, for so long is well done.
And again, I like the notion that she knows a lot of things about these dragons that he doesn't, because she's spent like her 20 years studying them, basically being like the Jane Goodall of dragons. It's like she can show him a lot. Like, for all that he knows, she can still show him a lot. And I thought, oh, there's an interesting plot point. Maybe Drago, used her knowledge, or used her for something, and that's how he got hit. But nope. There's just there's not a lot of depth to all this, is what I'm saying. It's like there are interesting pieces here, but they're not assembled in a way that it very easily could have been for me, to make it more interesting.
It's very Korra for me in that way. Individual parts that I absolutely love, and the ideas that are there, but the overall tapestry just is not woven together at all. They're all just independent, it damages the impact overall for me. But the relationship with her and Hiccup, the little bits and sequences we get, because you get a lot of time, lent to those two. What did you think of that? I really liked the relationship they had from Hiccup's side. Like, Hiccup was like, it's a lot to take in, to be frank. He was very believable in all of this.
I like those. I like a lot of the scenes in the present. Like I said, it's like and after the initial awkward introduction, it sort of works for me. You'll have to kind of drive the bus on this, because I just watched it only the one time the other day, so it's like I don't have as good a memory of it as the first one, because I've seen the first one a couple times. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't as though like every single moment she was on screen bothered me. That's not what I'm getting across. It's just that's not what I'm trying to say, rather. I just would have tweaked a lot of things about her. But I especially like this scene where he was trying to like sort of one up her, and he showed that he could fly too, and just sort of her awe at that, she really feels like, even though she's been gone all this time, like that's her influence, or like those are her genes, or like this is her son. I like that kind of stuff. Those moments worked really well for me. Also, I feel like she didn't do quite enough, like in the finale.
She wasn't anywhere near as present as she needed to be, both for the characters and the actual plot, to kind of justify the amount of time this film allocated her as a being. I agree with that. To me, the middle part of the film, when her bouncing off all the different characters that she does, is what is the interesting stuff with her, and then everything else is like, she's not, she's just kind of there. I don't really care. Moving on from the stuff with Hiccup and her, which the learning of the different abilities, the kind of power up for Toothless, and the feeding and all that really nice kind of setting stuff with the dragons. I really appreciated and loved all of that. But after that, we then get the introduction of Stoic again. Now, what did you think of her and Stoic? Because the initial introduction scene for that, I thought was very well done.
I agree with that part. Like that, I bought all of that, and I will say this: it confirmed what I already suspected, like from the beginning. Like the beginning of the movie starts this sort of the fact she appears in the movie is kind of telegraphed, because when he mentions that in that scene where he's with Astrid and he mentions like he doesn't know who his mother is, you know what I mean? Like that sort of subconsciously opens the door
that's
to
part of the
that.
story,
Yeah. But along with that, the very fact that Stoic wants Hiccup to be chief now, it's like, okay, you're probably gonna die. That was in my mind. And as soon as he meets her and he's like, I'm going, this is too happy.
Yeah.
Like this
you're,
is
you're being too much time is being spent on this character in a nice way.
Yeah.
This is not going to end well. That's the problem with that kind of thing. It's when you've watched, experienced so many different stories, you know exactly how that was going to play. And I was like, oh god.
Yeah, that was the moment where I'm going, yep, he's dead. Either that or she's like a complete traitor somehow, like she's a bad guy. Like there's something is going to go wrong. Like this is not going to be a family union.
No. But at the same time, there's that scene in the vacuum. He drops a sword immediately. He immediately takes the hat off and holds it down. The almost instinctive response of respect. He's like, he's seen a ghost at this point, and he's just like, oh my god. And that scene for me is just beautiful. Because especially followed up with the singing scene, because that could be really cheesy. But I feel like they pulled it off perfectly.
Yeah, and I like the, we often complain about bathos, in our various, Fanalyses of various works. But I did like the comedy that Gabber brought to it. Like I thought that actually was an instance of having like a touching moment intermingling naturally, and I welcomed it like with comedy, so I enjoyed that scene start to finish.
If nothing else, the levity, as a character, he's going to want to try and bring some levity to this, because he knows what this scene means for everyone involved, and he's like, try, happy moment, don't get too over. And I like these, that fits his character as well. But just small things like her expecting him to explode and rage at her, and him just being, back into, oh my god, the love of my life is before me again. He's just over the moon. The even smaller moment when he just he says to Hiccup, steady on, it's a lot to take in. He understands this woman. This, unlike the relationship he has with Hiccup, this is someone he can relate to and intricately knows. This is his wife. He picks up the jug that she's kind of almost about to drop and just places it down. It's, he's reaching out to her because he can do that. It's nice to see that side of him, and it sells the relationship that he's kind of tentatively reaching out for. And they're both, and yet still at the same time, he knows her so well, but he's still, and love, and he's like, he's feeling like he's lost that connection before she then finishes it for him. It's so tentative and it's just drama on screen. I love it.
I agree with that. I don't have any flaws there. It's like, and again, it's not like I hate her character. It's just I don't like her the way you're clearly supposed to want to.
Yeah,
you know
precisely,
what I mean?
Yeah, it's the fact that she has fallen to a certain extent flat. They've missed a beat there on her, which is a shame. But the individual scenes like that, I thought they did very, very well. I mean, I
agree with that. Yeah,
they do moments like near perfection in these films, which I just you just got to weave them together. Fingers crossed for film now. Please.
Now, because I want to get to Drago Bloodfist here. Are we there? Like, are we at that point?
Yeah.
So the setup for the scene is that Eret has promised to take, under
duress.
threat, under duress, to take the group. Thanks to Astrid, he has promised to take them to Drago's lair, I guess.
Another example of this group being active as well. They're not going to accomplish anything, but they think they are because the information they have available. They're trying to be active in the story.
Now he immediately turns on them, or is it only because like he realizes that this is going south? Like I mean,
he was never really on their side, so that wasn't so much a
that's
betrayal.
true.
It's
Fair
just a
enough.
case of he's
Yeah,
like, oh,
fair
I
enough.
can play this. I brought dragons and
I
they're
guess
riders.
that was the deception. He acted as though he engineered this when not at all.
Yeah,
He
just turns it into his favor.
I knew there was something about it. He wasn't on the up and up. But that's what it was. He changed the story.
And she's like, "What? Are you kidding me?"
Yeah.
It's like, you really should not be surprised by this.
Now the villain, I wasn't immediately disappointed with him. Okay, like I said, I liked his build up, and I liked the like him, cooing over like the bubbling, something down there. I thought, oh, this is interesting. What's this character going to be? But like he in like the scene where he dominates a dragon, that was good.
And he's just swinging the thing. It felt very proportionate for what he'd need to do for this kind of alpha situation. It was very cool. And
he sort of it showed the difference between like sort of like dominating one and earning one's loyalty, and he does it like over the course of like 30 seconds. It's like this short, this in a very small moment you can achieve like dominance over this thing, but its willingness to follow you is just as fleeting. You know what I mean? Whereas like the dragons that you bond with, like it's like for life. I enjoyed that. Like and I liked him as a foil in that way on like a thematic level, because that's clearly the theme of like the end of this, the movie,
And again, talking about their ability to blend different elements together, like they use that moment again as a counterpoint to that is Stormfly saving Eret. The whole loyalty of a dragon. Once you earlier on, Hiccup tells him outright that once you earn the loyalty of a dragon, there's nothing that they won't do for you. This is him seeing that. And he's like, oh, okay. I mean, he was right. That's their point where Eret then is fully on their side and will work towards him because he's just been betrayed by Drago, if nothing else. But yeah, they kind of counterbalance the two arguments there with Eret as the kind of focal point. Which is, I mean, if I cared about his character more, then I think that would be very well played off. It just personally, I wasn't really sold on him. I
certainly didn't dislike him, but he's a bit dry. You know, it's like that's all. Sort of like early season Jon Snow. To be honest,
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see him going somewhere. It's just the fact that his first introduction was just expedition. It didn't help. Exposition rather. But yeah, so and the fact, and again, I wasn't massively disappointed with Drago to start with. And to the end, I wasn't really. The fact that he was bigged up so much, early hype was what killed it for me. The rest of it was fine. It wasn't outstanding.
I kept expecting more payoff with him, or just. The movie kind of calls out itself like what are you doing this for? Like just to conquer? Like what? Like, are we doing that same old plot again? And it is kind of like that. Like, what
we get that scene. I mean, we'll get to that later on, because he does have that moment with Hiccup when he's talking about his village, and when Hiccup raises that point, what is this about? So you can have power, so you can dominate the world, and he's like, yeah, but I lived under the yoke of dragons. But I was like, and you can kind of get what they're going for.
I didn't quite buy that
precisely. We never got any delivery.
I didn't see how that differs from anyone else.
Precisely.
Like, doesn't everyone deal with that story? Or isn't that everyone's story rather?
Yeah, it's like,
I mean, look, like Hiccup's like, well, look, I'm missing a foot. Yeah. Look at Gobber, he's missing more than you. You're just missing like an arm. I mean, it's like, okay.
Yeah, we needed to see more emotion from him when he talks about this. We need to see a flashback. We just needed something to sell us on his pain and his suffering. Otherwise, he's just like, oh god, fine. He's just a weak person who can't take the challenge of life.
I would have preferred it that he either had a deeper motivation or that he was intent on wiping out the dragons, like he wanted to kill them all,
gather them up, and then just kill them all.
Yeah. Or I would have, and again, I insist that this would have been more interesting. I would have also liked for him to have had some kind of history with Hiccup's mother, like having abused her knowledge of how to do it. You know what I mean? Like, she's the one that learned how to
mentored him, and then he went off and I mean, that's a cliche, but they could have done that. They could have done something with that, and that would have been the reason she didn't go back to the village. Maybe she was trying to get back to Berk, found him on the way, trained him. That was then what put her off. Like, okay, I'm not going to go back to Berk then, because dragons just need to be separated from them. We can't blend them together. It doesn't work. Something like that.
just something, you know, like it would, because both characters feel underwritten to me. Him much more so than her, but yeah, I mean, he just doesn't quite work for me. And yeah, I mean, what do we want to talk about? Do we talk about like the battle, like the
yeah? I mean, once you've had the
right?
emotional scenes, you move on to the battle. They save during the battle. Obviously the people in the prison, the B team, as it were, Astrid and the rest, escape their bonds, and they fight. Big epic fight scene, very intense, like the climax of the first film. Very well done. They had more characters on the field to play with at this point because they had more development going on. They could actually put them in different moments, and it would play better.
The scale of this alone is really impressive, and not just because you have two gigantic, you know, alpha dragon things, like just the amount of people involved in the setting, you know.
The animation and how it's being played out in front of you, if nothing else, and the the epic clash of the Titans in the background, you know, that's again, it's been done, but they kind of sell the impact of the kind of the clash of Titans. It feels like that on the battlefield for you, and then you play that off. Oops, sorry.
You even have a clash between what's her name? Hiccup's mother.
Yes, Valka and Drago.
Valka? Okay. Yeah, you even have a confrontation with them, but it's like you two don't have anything to do with each other. You know what I mean? So it's like it's not really a flaw, but it's just like, again, because it's like an easy fix for both characters if they have history. You know, it's like now I'd be more invested now. Like when you have these two dragon masters, if you want to call them that, like, and they have like two completely different like ideals, you know, like where one's like in step with them and the other one's just using them as a tool or hates them, you know, despite his control over them. There's not as impressive as the rest of this scene is. He's a very what's that word?
Impersonal character. Like, these are just two people fighting on a battlefield. There's no dramatic tension here. There's no like, they're representing their conflicting ideologies, but because of the way both characters have been kind of sold to us throughout the film, that they don't feel like those ideologies are clashing right now because there's no drama between them. There's no I taught you this way back in the day and I disagree with your view. It's just a case of these are two people fighting and their personal ideologies are independent of that almost. That's just what puts them on the battlefield against each other.
And again, the movie doesn't have to go this route, but it just feels so much more natural to me too, because of the fact that they both are good at using dragons or taming them. You know what I mean? Like they both have that ability. So it's like, why don't we see that expressed here?
And then you've also got fact that the failure of the previous generation and then the victory of the next one. You know, there's a lot of drama you can play with, and like how she failed her student and Hiccup won't fail his people. You know, I'm not saying that's the way they should have gone because I think it would have been very cliche, but doing something with it would have been better than nothing. It falls flat without something there.
But now, having said that, though, sorry, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, well, we move on then to the real drama of that battle, which we knew was coming. I'm just going to say it, during that fight, when Valka and Stoic were off together and the Alpha was bearing in, I was in the film, I was like, please kill them, please go there, kill them both, kill them now. I mean, that sounds harsh, but to me, that was like a setup moment. I just wanted a very impersonal, very almost tragic by the fact that it wasn't bigged up. Just boom, they're gone, and they're gone together, and they've been reunited, and now they've been taken away from a Hiccup. Because while I wouldn't want that to be done immediately in general in storytelling, I would have preferred that to just Stoic dying, because just Stoic dying was going to happen regardless. We knew that was going to happen. But
I agree with that now. I actually that didn't occur to me, but I agree with that. That would have been more of a gut punch because we both clearly were. I thought, okay, maybe this is just me. But I'll see what Reti thinks when I talk with him. But I totally was like, yes, it is sad when Stoic dies, but totally saw it coming. You know,
it's just
and it's interesting thinking about this again. And it's hard to talk about this because I don't want to, because you haven't seen Coco, and without giving anything away, there are things that you will see coming, but for some reason, it works better in that movie than a moment like this. But this is still a great moment. Like his actual death is very.
It's telegraphed, but it's just it's so well. Again, everything with this film, your cliches and stuff that you see coming, everything is still done very well in the individual moments. You know, it's played off. He doesn't have a die. I'm sorry, goodbye. There's none of that. He's just dead. Instant blast kills him. He's gone. That is very important because that sells the believability of it, and also the kind of tragic nature of the fact that he didn't get to say goodbye to either his son or his reunited wife. bigs up
And
the tragedy and the drama.
I'll give them credit for the fact that he stays dead too, because for a movie like this, I mean, I wasn't entirely sure that he would. Like, even if he came back in some kind of ghost form, where he's like, "Don't worry, boy, I'm still here." It's like something. Like, I mean, they could have done that,
I'm
but
off
they
to
didn't.
Valhalla.
You're right. Yeah, I mean, and they go, "Oh, this is this is impactful and moving." Did I get something in my eye? Did I tear up? No, but it was. It still felt. I like, by this point you fully like Stoic. You know what I mean? So you do. There is a degree of
Loss.
Yes, and it's like, it's weird because you sometimes process different deaths differently. Sometimes it's just like despair. Sometimes it's anger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in this case, it was like, oh, I'm frustrated and I feel a little hollow right now. But I wasn't crying. But I mean, it was like, it was still moving. What was even sadder was the way that it was done, though, which we didn't talk about, which is Toothless is used as the instrument for that, and that's and of course, rightly or wrongly, I'm not sure how. I mean, his mom points out to him immediately that it's not his fault, but
he knows that anyway. Yeah, that wasn't a lesson he needed to learn. But the getaway thing was completely believable and should have been written that way, because even though he knows that. Yeah. He's processing the fact that you just killed my father. I don't care if you're my best friend or whatever. You get away from him. Don't you touch him. You just killed this person.
And it's sad. It's hard. That part is arguably more uncomfortable to watch and process than the actual death itself for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, particularly because Toothless is nuzzling his hand. It's like, come on, he's like, hello, and then it's like he doesn't know what he's done. It wasn't his fault. But yeah, everyone knows that, and that just makes it so much more impactful because this is raw emotion being processed in front of you.
Yeah. And so I will give the movie credit for that as well. While I predicted long in advance that Stoic would probably be departing, I didn't predict the means through which that would happen. That was impressive. That was a momentous occasion in a bad way.
Yes, And to be fair, even speaking about the death of Stoic, that's coming from us who are experienced. Not storytellers, story experiences. Whatever. Yeah. People, this could be someone's Mufasa moment. That is a thing, and that would be a very good one if that was the case. Especially young children, you don't have the kind of necessarily have the nuanced kind of understanding of how stories work yet. That will be a surprise, and that will be a very impactful one, I think. So from that, that side of things, very well done. But yeah, I just think would have been kind of colder and more tragic if it was just a case of them both getting blotted out on the side of the mountainside. Even if it was Toothless doing it, just jetting them.
I feel like as you say that, I find myself agreeing with you that would have worked better. At the same time, I feel like they would have never sold that idea to the studio. They probably would have never been able to do that. Parents will not take their children to see this after the first weekend when they go home and say, no, everyone died. And they're just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that probably couldn't happen, but I do agree that probably would have been more impactful in a positive way in terms of actual quality. If this was like a book or like a similar story, that moment rewritten in that way would have worked better for me. I agree.
Yeah, it was just something that I thought at the time, and then, but obviously they went at least halfway with the Stoic.
And again,
even if it was predictable.
I think I probably wouldn't want that to happen had they done more with her character earlier on up to that point. But because of the way it is as is, I would actually prefer it that way.
And that was the other thing. I initially thought, maybe they'll kill her off. Maybe she'll be the one that goes down, which would be even worse because Stoic then just loses her again. But the problem is they couldn't do that because they've only just introduced her. It would have been a nothing character if they'd done that. She has to have stories told later on to make up for the lack of time, if nothing else, that she's had thus far. But that would have been another thing, having that pull, here's your wife alive and now she's dead, pulled away from you. That's going to be tragic. But yeah, that wouldn't have worked from the story overall.
No, I don't have too much more to say about this movie because, it's more or less a
action scene moving forward.
Yeah, and that's kind of how we talked about it in the case of the first movie as well. But it's incredibly well done for the most part. But I don't want to skip over anything. So if there's anything in particular you want to talk about, go ahead and bring that.
I can't think of anything. Individual moments between the mother and Hiccup and Astrid and all that stuff. The funeral. We should talk about the funeral, I suppose, in the Viking style of sailing Stoic away and the words that were said. That was all good. This is the point where Hiccup kind of assumes the role of leader. You know, he's always been the leader, of course. It's his character. He's been showing that from day one. But this is the point where he says, "Okay, I will be chief. I will protect my own. I will take this duty upon me." And that's when that is delivered. And I think that was done quite well. But aside from the big fight, epic conclusion of the battle itself in the film, there's not much to talk about other than the fact that he was made chief. Elder gave him the sign, and that's kind of it.
And I just feel like when we get to that point where he challenges Drago, for like control, or when he, I don't quite understand why Bloodfist just allows him to talk to Toothless and try to bring him back. You know what I mean?
It's the assuredness of his victory. He's like, you can't do this. It's impossible. Why are you trying? Ha ha.
Yeah, I agree that's the moment, like on paper. And it arguably it makes sense even given what we've seen. But I feel like it would have been better had
he not had that chance.
Yeah, had we if we cared enough about where Drago was coming from by this point for him to be making that grandstanding
maybe
moment,
something just like that he couldn't do it, like he tried this and failed and that's how he lost his arm, something like that, a flashback where he tried to do this, he was an optimist like Valka, like Hiccup, and he met a really unlucky dragon or he just didn't have the personality to pull it off. He didn't drop the knife and he kept the sword on him when he tried to reach it and stroke it, kind of thing, something like that, to then embitter him to this whole argument of you can live with dragons in harmony. It's like, no, you can't. I'm proof of that. Look what happened when I tried. You throw it down. Like you try it. You try and you fail. To deal with Toothless right now. Something like that. That would have been a bit more tense in both the arguments and that individual scene of the emotional side. Yeah,
and I actually, because we never are explained to like how he got control over the Alpha that he commands, do we? So it's like I really would have liked that for him to have used knowledge he got from her or wherever, to not, I can't tame dragons. I can't do it, but I can dominate them. Or you know what I mean? It's like,
and more importantly, you can't. You can't do this. It's like
a rejection
in denial of what he's seeing.
Yeah, a rejection of the existence of your whole philosophy, like because like that's the villain thing to do. You know what I mean? Like, but it. So I don't quite understand why he gives him the chance. Well, I do. I mean, like you said, like that's probably the cliched reason. I don't think there's enough groundwork building up to that point, is what I'm saying. Like for him to allow him to do it. But once he does do it, it's a fine moment and everything. And I like the imagery of like the little dragon versus the behemoth, and not being like afraid of it, and like the other ones, it's interesting that they can choose like who the Alpha is, based on that clash. I sort of like that they start following Toothless in that way, and it becomes like this togetherness thing, like we're all going to unite again.
Joint Alpha kind of thing. They're both leaders of their respective kind of halves of the tribe, which is cool.
That's all. Yeah, that's all good. That's strong, but. How did it end? Like the thing just retreated under the water, and did Drago die?
Yeah, you get a look from Hiccup where it's like, well, I'm gonna, Tim. Okay, I'm doing my job. I'm gonna look for him. I'm not gonna just abandon him to death. But then when he doesn't see him, he's like, fine. I like that very subtle little thing where he's kind of just going, okay, he's not there. He's probably dead. That's not my problem. He made his decision. Then he turns away, and then he accepts the mantle of chief. I liked that moment. I'm not sure if that's how they were trying to play it off, but that's how I read it anyway. He gave it the cursory look. I'm going to be the good guy.
Enough,
but
there's enough explaining his mentality there, but I didn't like the ambiguity in that particular case. Like ambiguity can work well, but I just was like, wait, what happened?
Yeah,
like, I'm not quite sure.
Is he going to be coming back? Is he still a threat? That's the kind of thing I was thinking about. It's like, we'll see.
And then after that, the movie just kind of ends. Like he's chief, and like everyone's happy again. You know what I mean? It's like. But yeah, I mean, it's. I guess we're wrapping up right now. What do you have to say? Well, like in the wake of all this?
Again, I said that I prefer the second one because coming straight out of it, I think it was I was so invigorated by the awesome presentation of it, and that was my memory of it. The stuff that I remember from the second one are the individual moments and scenes. The Astrid and Hiccup at the start, Valka and Stoic. Their centerpiece in the middle of the film. The flight, the greater animation, greater detail, the epic scale of the fights being bigged up, all that kind of stuff. I loved that more than the first film. But as an overall work, as an overall kind of tapestry being woven together in all the different scenes and characters and plot points and themes and all that stuff that makes stories work, the first one just does that better. There's nothing, as we said at the start of this, there's nothing you can just, no loose threads that need tying up or anything.
Yeah.
It all works.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And the second one, there's a lot that just doesn't work. But at the same time, they were trying for a lot more, so I can forgive them their flaws much easier than I otherwise would have done.
Yeah, I was sort of blindsided by this series of movies. I enjoyed them immensely, and I had completely written them off sort of without reason. I just never gave them a chance. But yeah, I mean, I'm 26 years old, and like these, I watched them both for the same time at that age, so this isn't colored by any sort of nostalgia. But I absolutely love these movies. You know, it's just well, the first one I absolutely adore. Like I said, it's very rare that I there's absolutely nothing that bothers me about this. You know what I mean? It's like I would rewatch it anytime. You know, it's that kind of movie. I don't think I get sick of it. And there are other movies like that. It's not unique in that way, but reaching that echelon is like the highest praise I can give. So yeah, you know
Absolutely.
what I mean? Best in show, you know, like that kind of thing. I love this movie. Yeah. I do prefer the first one over the sequel, but the sequel's still pretty damn good, and I'm looking forward to the third one, actually. Hopefully, I mean, there's always that chance for disappointment, you know?
I don't see how they could keep up the pace they've done. I mean, I especially given the trailer they've released, the stuff they've shown.
I haven't watched it, but I mean, I'm sure you have reason for that.
I won't spoil anything. I won't spoil
Okay.
anything, but what they've shown, I'm like, it's going to be, I can't see what they're going to do with it that'll make it anywhere near as good as what's come before, but I'm hoping that I'm going to be surprised. There's always a chance for that, and if nothing else, they'll give us at least some good, because, like I said, the individual moments, your favourite scene from film 2 is one of my favourite scenes from both films, full stop.
Yeah.
Just give us another one of those. I'm happy, money paid,
I agree.
Job done.
Yeah, I agree with that. But yeah, guys, I'm glad that you enjoyed, I hope you enjoyed watching this. I'm glad you got the chance to, listen to us talk about something unusual, because, normally we talk about Star Wars, Harry Potter, Last Airbender. This is like a departure from all that kind of stuff, just like what's on our mind today. We definitely, I do want to say we have plans to talk about The Incredibles and its sequel, and also Coco in particular, but we want to kind of talk about all the Pixar movies, eventually.
Pixar and Disney as well. We're going to be branching off at some point into all of these. It's just a case of a matter of when.
And our other friends for sure have sort of signed up for the Disney Renaissance film, so that's not going to be just a Callan and Matt thing. But there's always a chance for more of these. And if there's any particular films that you guys would like us to talk about, feel free to leave your requests or suggestions, and we'll get to them if they're things that we feel we can add to the discussion about. And tell us how you enjoyed How to Train Your Dragon 1 and 2, and the series as well.
Yes, let us know if there's anything important that we don't know about from there, because I've just seen little bits and pieces. I've not really seen the overall. It'd be nice to know if there's anything groundbreaking that we need to know really to help fix some problems or whatever that might be in these films, or just enhance it. Looking forward to it.
But yeah, I know I've enjoyed discussing these movies as much as I've enjoyed watching them. So thanks for joining us, and thank you, Callan, for sharing this with me.
Yes, no worries. And I hope you guys enjoyed listening to our little discussions that aren't Fanalyses, even if it kind of did turn into a full analysis of both films. That wasn't the intention, but we so often do go in depth. Yeah.
We kept it under 4 hours. I think we're fine.
Yeah, that's true. We would usually jump. This is the point where we jump over and discuss a scene from Korra and then not stop for 6 hours, and then jump back to Star Wars or whatever. But yeah,
it happens.
It does. But this has been much more self-contained, so I hope you've enjoyed. And let us know if you want us to cover anything else in the future. I'm Reti 4, and I still don't have an outro.
This is GreyJedi 91, and I just fucked up my own name. There's my outro for once.
Hope you guys enjoyed, guys. See you later. Goodbye.